heading into yet another pay-per-view for this year. A little bit too soon from Extreme Rules for my taste, but that's another story, and is kind of repeating what happened in 2006 with so many pay-per-views that happened in the year. And of course, I think it's end of May, sometime in June, we've got the Elimination Chamber, an exclusive WWE Network pay-per-view, which is a good thing in essence, but it's too many events too quickly. If anything, it should go back to being 10 events a year, because it gives time to actually build the stories and events. But I'm just procrastinating, and let's get on with the first bout of the evening. Mr. Eccentric versus a guy who has clearly traded common sense for his less than impressive Sonic the Hedgehog mohawk. And that's no good. Ambrose is very quickly becoming a master of mind games, using veteran instincts like playing possum and then gaining the advantage when the enemy drops the guard. Ambrose wins via pinfall.
I have something to say.
Lana was made to read an apology she clearly did not want to adhere to. Then Rusev started talking trash and I decided to skip.
Jobbing time.
Knowing that Seth Rollins has an undisputed title defense this Sunday, he needed to go into the pay-per-view with momentum. And that's exactly what happened. Ryback had been accosted by Bray Wyatt before the match, and that really set the tone of what was going to happen and that Ryback wasn't going to prevail. Despite the setback the big guy had in front of him, he lost to Seth Rollins via 3 super kicks. Talk about overkill.
Jobbing time.
2 very talented athletes that are being utilised, but not in the way I would like for one of them. Kofi is a guy who worked best as a face and should have had at least 2 world title reigns by now. This guy was that talented and would have done more than well enough against John Cena or Randy Orton. Tyson Kidd wins via submission convincingly via sharpshooter.
Jobbing time.
Wait, Bo, you're still a thing? I didn't realise creative were that desperate. Again. Another insufferable promo, this time mocking Daniel Bryan's injury before the match even got started. Can we just get this guy pulled out by the curtain hook? He sucks. Neville is just amazing to watch in the ring. And he is a good prospect for WWE's future. And I can see him becoming the Undisputed Champion someday. And you can quote me on that. Neville wins via Red Arrow. Amazing match. Given the nature and history of no DQ matches, this was never going to be pleasant. And it wasn't. Both men went to war with each other, intent on gaining a victory, as the score had to be settled from Monday Night Raw, where there was no victor that night. Given how, like Seth Rollins, needed to go into Payback with momentum, so too did Roman Reigns, considering that this would be his first undisputed title shot since, unfortunately, being unsuccessful at WrestleMania 31. Reigns wins a brutal match via spear. And now, on to the WWE Payback preview. And let's just go straight to the main event. The fatal 4-way match for the WWE Undisputed Championship. Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. It's almost a Shield reunion, except it's not. 2 years ago, this would have been a 3-on-1 affair, but things happen, someone betrays the group splits up and go their separate ways, and it actually helps to develop some of their characters. Dean Ambrose, I feel, has been the most developed persona because he just was allowed to go out on his own and really, be allowed to go with the art of selling. This guy knows how to sell his character, and he's a great ring technician. Similar thing with Seth Rollins, although he's not the guy I would have picked out of the Shield to be a single successor. I mean, yes, he has the undisputed title, but he's not a complete single successor until he has held that title for, say, 4 or 5 months. And so far, he's held it for just over a month. But we shall see. It's too soon for Orton to be champion again, but I'm glad at last he is getting the rematch he should have had at WrestleMania 30. I mean, even as, you know, a heel, if you actually didn't lose the belt, you know, because you weren't the guy that lost it via pinfall or submission, then, you know, logic should dictate that you should get an opportunity to reclaim it. I don't often say that, but logic stands. If you weren't the guy that actually lost the belt, even though you were the champion going into it, you should have at least some right to do so. I'm gonna have to go with Seth Rollins on this because it's too soon. If I wanted anyone out of that match to pick up the win, it would be Dean Ambrose because he is super over. He is Stone Cold Steve Austin over. But will he be allowed to go that way? No, because Vince McMahon says he hasn't grabbed that brass ring. Ugh. What do I say for Bray Wyatt versus Ryback? I say Mulligan. An I Quit match featuring John Cena for a prestigious, albeit a mid-card belt, but it's one that is actually starting to get some prestige and actual relevance that it hasn't had for some time. I'm going to say Cena because, come on, it's John Cena, and Cena is not really one of those people to lose the advantage and momentum in a kind of 2 out of 3 settings. You know, I'm kind of glad he is making that belt worthwhile and relevant again, but I can't see Rusev getting the belt back, and you know, Vince McMahon loves Cena. Yeah. The Battle of the Brits. I think this could be the match that steals the show because it's two very different, contrasting styles. Contrasting styles. On the one hand, you have a very rough, brawling character like Barrett, whatever he chooses to call himself these days. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line, if he, decides to be a guy that works in the railroad yard, he's Railroad Barrett. I mean, we've gone from Wade, I'm interesting Barrett, shut up Wade, to Bad News Barrett, and now we've got King Barrett. King Barrett has a nice ring to it, and he's the first King of the Ring to be from England since William Regal, but considering the role that Neville is on at the moment, he has got much more to gain than Barrett, so I'm going to say Neville. And that guy is, as Oni would like to say, Epoch! Oh goody! It's round 2 of a scenario that nobody really wants to see. Except for Ziggler winning. I'm going to be honest, Sheamus is actually doing a lot better as a bad to the bone heel again, but Sheamus, we have to talk about that mohawk. Sonic the Hedgehog is suing you for gimmick infringement. And that's no good. But, to a better point, who do I think will win? Ziggler, because Ziggler needs to stay on a good, momentous push, and he has more to gain. Sheamus doesn't, in my view. This is probably the second Divas tag team match we've seen on pay-per-view this year. Only one of those teams is talented. I think you know which direction I'm going in for this one. I mean, I don't think the Bellas ever went face. I mean, where was the memo on that one? I must have been out of a board meeting because I don't ever recall them being over as faces. Not since they came back about 3 to 4 years ago. I've been very vocal about this before. Tamina doesn't need to be a Kevin Nash or a Virgil or a Curtis Hughes or, you know, a ride back to his Paul Heyman. You know, Tamina needs to go for the gold. She is a tested thoroughbred that is more than capable of carrying the Divas division on her back. But for whatever reason, to the powers that be, she's not singles material and has to be the heavy, the physical backup, the bodyguard type role. I'm going to say Tamina and Naomi to go over because there's nothing up for grabs. So the only thing that's going to be gained out of this is the fact that Naomi is someone to be taken seriously, and I will keep hammering this point home because a woman with those kind of natural athletic gifts should be carrying the Divas division, not Nikki Bella. A 2 out of 3 fall setting between two very talented tag teams in the WWE. As much as I would like to see Cesaro and Tyson reclaim their belts, I can't really see the New Day losing it this soon, because the longer they hold on to those belts, the bigger the payoff it is going to be when they are actually made to drop said titles. So I think it'll probably be around SummerSlam, whatever the September pay-per-view is called these days, because they seem to change it every other year, or possibly Survivor Series. It's going to happen at something that's impactful and meaningful. I'd like to see Tyson and Kid. I'd like to see Kid and Cesaro get the belts back, but I don't know. They seem to want to go with the New Day for the time being, and like I said, the momentum, you know, the payoff is going to be that much greater when they actually drop the belts, so I'm going with the New Day, sadly. And we have what is likely to be the kickoff, the Mecha Powers. I like the fact that they're going along with it, you know, this kind of Macho Man style for Sandow, and although it's a gimmick of a wrestler, impersonating WWE legends from the past, it's actually kind of refreshing for him because he's actually allowed to show much more charisma. And, you know, Axel to come out as, you know, as an impersonation of Hulk Hogan, it's kind of amusing. And the Ascension, we want to be the Legion of Doom so bad it hurts. I can't see them getting over it on this one because they've got this real angst against legendary tag teams, whether it be Legion of Doom, whether it be the New Age Outlaws or the NWO, which was a stable, but they actually were in tag team matches. So I can't see them getting over because Sandow and especially Axel, they have so much more to gain from this, and I can't see the Ascension getting over whatsoever. SmackDown was decent this week. Not necessarily awe-inspiring, but it was definitely a step up from last week's rating of D, which I gave it. If I'm incorrect, comment section below. Pardon me. But this week, I think SmackDown gets a solid C+, purely because they, when you're going into the last episode before a pay-per-view, and X24 Rider has said this time and time and time again, you need a strong finish because it gets people hyped up for the pay-per-views. And what I saw this week, I think they did just that. Matches were at a reasonable pace that they needed to be, and especially Neville versus Bo Dallas. Ugh. There are jokes, and then there are Bo Dallas. And jokes are supposed to be funny. But yeah, SmackDown gets a solid C+, and it's definitely giving me some excitement to go with into PayBack. Until then, folks, good night from the night, and I'll see you next time.